The false ideals about and the moral hypocrisies that have been inundated our world many times trap us in unrealistic expectations on ourselves and other people. And then we end up with all this drama in our life because we're expecting the world to be something it's not going to be. Today's topic is accepting yourself is not the full story. And most people you hear talking about, I'd like to accept myself the way I am, but I'm going to change that language. So if you have something to write with and write on, you may just want to take a few notes. But the first thing I'd like to say is if somebody comes up to you and they do or act out a way that you maybe have a bit resistance and challenge by their behavior, you go around and you may want to avoid them. There's a tendency to, with a sympathetic nervous system, to have a kind of a fight or flight response. If you can't change them, you'll probably just avoid them. And so you end up having kind of an avoidance response. And then if they happen to be around you, let's say they're part of your family or part of your close people at work or something like that, and you go, well, I don't like being around them, but I have to tolerate them or I have to accept them. And people come up to you and say, well, you need to learn how to accept people the way they are. I don't want to stop there. I think that's really incomplete. I don't want you to accept yourself. I don't want you to just accept and tolerate people. I want to take it another level up. I want you to take it to a point where you appreciate them and realize that they're contributing to your life in a way that you're grateful for it. Because not, you've got an internal conflict going on, and I'd like to elaborate on what I mean by that. So I don't want to go at the point where I want to accept myself or accept other people. I want to appreciate myself and appreciate other people and love them for the contribution that they're making in my life. That's the level I want to take it to. So, anytime an individual acts a behavior or displays or demonstrates a behavior that you dislike, that you feel that you can't avoid, instead of sitting there and go, okay, just tolerate that and accept that, here's how I want you to do it. I want you to ask this question. What specific trait, action or inaction, do you perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that you dislike or despise or avoid or want to avoid most? And get really specific on it. Now, when you do that, you're narrowing down a vague general thing, I don't like this individual, down to a specific subcomponent of their behavior, an action that they're doing. I've yet to see anybody that despises everything about a human being. It's just parts. And I've not seen people admire or like everything about a human being. It's parts. When I've taken people through my grief process and people have passed away and they're grieving the loss of people, they don't actually grieve the loss of all the parts. They only grieve the loss of parts of them, not all the parts. So what's interesting is when you identify the parts that they're grieving the loss of, it's only the things that they admired about them. They're not grieving the loss of the things they disliked and despised about them. So too, when you're disliking somebody, there's parts that you could admire and like about them. You just don't like certain parts of them, pieces of them. And so instead of just going, okay, I'm accepting them and tolerating that, I think it's wiser to go and ask the question, what specific trait, action, or inaction do I perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that I dislike or hate or despise or want to avoid the most? And get really precise on the part. Once you're precise on the part, now you ask another question. Go to a moment where and when you perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating that same or similar specific trait, action, or inaction in yourself. And identify where you've done it, when you've done it, to whom you've done it to, and who perceives you doing it like you're perceiving them do it. And if you go and do that exercise and answer that question numerous times, about 20 times or more, where did you do it, when did you do it, who did you do it to, and who perceives you doing it, and do it and just keep going until you see that what you see in them, you see in you. I guarantee you will calm some of the judgment down, because now you're humbling yourself and realizing what you see in them you have. Now, once you've done that, part of the judgment and part of the edge of that judgment is calmed. Now, if you ask another question, go to a moment where and when you perceive them displaying that specific trait that you dislike. And in that moment, how does it serve you? How does it benefit you? What's the upsides? What's the advantage? What are you getting to learn as a result of that? What are you getting to do as a result of that? What are the upsides of that behavior? And answer that question 20 or 30 times. And then go the next time they've done it. And in that moment, how did it help you? Now, I've done this on well over 100,000 people. And I assure you, you can find in your reflection where you've done what you judge in others, because it's been shown for centuries, even millennia, that we only judge people on the outside that represent parts of us inside we're not loving. So even in, I believe, Romans 2-1 in the biblical New Testament, it talked about watch out for judging others, for what you judge in others is actually you. It's your projection. You point your finger, you got 3 fingers back. When you actually own the trait and level the playing field quantitatively and qualitatively, and you realize that, oh my God, I do the same thing, and you find out how it serves you, the judgment on it calms, and instead of being, I'll tolerate and I'll accept them, you're now appreciating what they're doing. Because the moment you see more drawbacks and benefits, you got to deal with tolerance and acceptance. The second you see just as many benefits as drawbacks, you come to appreciation. You realize that they're serving you and you're grateful for that. And then they don't occupy space and time in your mind. Anything that you dislike, resent, and want to avoid in others or even in yourself will occupy space and time in your mind and run you and distract you. And it'll cause an instinct to want to avoid that. You'll be ashamed if it's in you, and you'll be resentful to somebody else if it's in them. But by going in and finding out how it's an upside, because one of the great things about our life, instead of having false causalities and false attribution bias, and they're the cause of the way I feel, it's wiser to look at that you have control of your perception, decisions, and actions, and whatever's happening out there, you can change your perception of it and turn it into something you can be grateful for. That's one of the great things about our executive center. It has the ability to turn subjective biases into objective truths. And when the objective truth is there and we balance the equation objectively, we end up being grateful. Our executive center is our gratitude center in our brain. So I want to take whatever we've perceived that we've tolerated and accepted and turn into something we're appreciative of and grateful for and actually can love. Because I've taken people in the breakthrough experience, which is my signature program I've been teaching for 34 years. And I've taken people that people come in where they've got a major resentment to somebody, a spouse or some boss or somebody at work or some person that beat them or raped them or whatever. And I've taken that entire scenario and transformed it with the right questions and had them actually get to a point where they're a state of grace. They're just thankful. They had tears in their eyes. There's nothing there to be accepting or tolerating or resenting or anything. There's no emotion on it. There's just deep gratitude for it. I'd rather take you there, all the way there, than tolerate. I don't want you to be forgiving somebody, because usually when you forgive somebody, you're assuming there was something to forgive in the first place. And you're assuming that you don't do that. And you're too proud to admit you've done the same thing, which isn't true. And that you're assuming it was a negative without a positive, which isn't true. And you're assuming that there was repercussions that didn't have advantages and benefits there, which isn't true. I'm not interested in you forgiving somebody for what they did. I'm interested in you to find out the hidden order and appreciate for what they did and actually see them as a teacher and helping you grow in yourself and master your life. So by going in there and asking, what specific trait, action, inaction do you perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that you dislike or despise or resent or want to avoid most, and narrowing it down to the part, not the whole, then going in there and go to a moment where and when you perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating the same specific trait, action, inaction that you had despised in them, and own it. And then go to the moment where you perceive them actually doing it, the fact of when they did it, not hearsay, not assumptions, but the actual moments they did it. And in that moment, find out how it served you. Because if you can do that, then nothing on the outside world distracts you anymore. You're commander of your life, master of your fate, determining your destiny right there, because you changed whatever happened to you into your something to be grateful for. Anything you can't do that for is baggage. Anything you can do that for is fuel. You fueled your life with an experience that you transformed into something thankful. And now you're not accepting and tolerating them, you're appreciating them. If you answer those questions, you can even go another step and ask this question. If they had been in that moment acting in a way that you preferred, the fantasy, the way you hoped they would have acted, what would have been the drawback to you? And crack the fantasy you're comparing them to, which is one of the reasons why we judge people. We compare them to fantasies about how we think they're supposed to be or should be, and we have unrealistic expectations on people, and they don't live up to our fantasy and our unrealistic expectation, and then we judge them. It's not about what people do around us. It's our perception and how we interact with them and our expectations that are creating these scenarios that we think we have to tolerate and accept. Now, if we go in there and answer those questions and be thorough and accountable and not just run our story and be victims of history and want to blame and false attribution bias, if we are willing to be accountable and answer that question, which I hold people accountable in the breakthrough experience and train them on how to do, and it's a gold mine the rest of their life because they don't have to ever be upset about these other people and have to tolerate and accept these people. They can appreciate and love the people that they interact with in their life, and they don't have to carry baggage. I'm sure you've been in a situation, you've been resentful to somebody and you couldn't even go to sleep at night because the resentment was so strong. If you do this method, those are just 4 questions of a series of questions I outlined in the breakthrough experience on how to transcend those things and transform those experiences into something to be grateful for, you can liberate yourself and go to bed with an inner peace in the mind and a noise that's gone. It's calm, it's centered, it's restful. Now, you can also have the same thing in reverse. You can actually get to a point where you can be infatuated with somebody and then they can occupy space and time in your mind. So there's a reverse set of questions in the breakthrough experience that I show and teach people on how to take any infatuation, which means you minimize yourself to them, or any resentment, which means you exaggerate yourself to them, both of which are inauthentic states and imposter syndromes. The second you actually bring them into balance and actually neutralize the charge on them, the valency on them, and liberate yourself from the emotions that occupy your mind, you're poised and present and productive and powerful and purposeful and patient. And that's where the power is. Now, let's go one step further. The basic title is you don't have to accept yourself, right? You don't want to stop there. But we just did it with somebody else. Now let's do it on ourselves. Now go and ask yourself this question. What specific trait, action, or inaction do I perceive myself displaying or demonstrating that I dislike or despise or resent or want to avoid most in my life? That I'm having to tolerate and accept in myself. And then you go in there and find out, go to a moment where and when you've displayed this and until you see where you've displayed it. And then go and find out how did it serve other people when I displayed it and how did it serve me when I displayed it. The same way, go to the moment when you did it. How did it serve you? How did it serve the individuals you impacted when you did it? And you can dissolve the shame. You can dissolve the internal guilt. You can dissolve all the emotions where you're feeling you're having to tolerate and accept yourself for something that's not living up to the fantasy expectation. You know, many times we're taught by politics and religion some ideals that are moral hypocrisies about how our life's supposed to be. We're supposed to be nice, never mean, kind, never cruel, positive, never negative, giving, never taking, generous, never stingy, peaceful, never wrathful. These are not obtainable. The Buddha says the desire for that which is unobtainable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is the source of human suffering. These are not one-sided states, aren't obtainable in human beings. If I went up to you and I said, you're always positive, you're never negative, you wouldn't believe it. If I said, you're always negative, you're never positive, you wouldn't believe it. But if I said, sometimes you're positive, sometimes you're negative, you would immediately believe it with certainty. So the false ideals about and the moral hypocrisies that have been inundated our world many times trap us in unrealistic expectations on ourselves and other people. And then we end up with all this drama in our life because we're expecting the world to be something it's not going to be. And I think that these unrealistic expectations are the source of a lot of our suffering. You know, Paul Dirac, the Nobel Prize winner, said it's not that we don't know so much, we know so much that isn't so. We've been hoodwinked by the opium of the masses, the ideals told by politicians and religious leaders in many cases about how we're supposed to be all this one-sided world. But it's not true. I found many years ago when I was about 30 years old, I went through the Oxford Dictionary. I found I had every trait in my life that I found in the dictionary, 4,628 traits. And I found I had them all. And I found out that the traits that I first initially disliked, when I started finding the benefits, I realized I didn't want to get rid of. I'm telling you right now, you don't have to get rid of half of yourself to love yourself. You don't have to get rid of any part and tolerate any part or accept any part. You can appreciate every part. All the parts of your life are part of your magnificence. People are going around thinking, well, you're not perfect unless you're only one-sided. The perfection is already inside you. It's both-sided. You need both sides of yourself. There's times when you're going to be kinder and maybe cruel, and times you're going to be nice and mean and positive and negative. I want you to love all of it. I don't want you to accept and tolerate half of it. I want you to love all of it. How are you going to love yourself if you're trying to get rid of half yourself? How are you going to love the people around you if you're trying to get rid of half of them? Anybody who's been in a relationship and knows when a spouse is trying to get rid of half of you and change you and fix you, it's futile. It's futile trying to change you into something you're not, or trying to change others into something they're not. They're full. They have both sides. They're a human being. So I don't want you to just accept and tolerate yourself. I want you to love yourself and appreciate all parts of yourself. That's why I tell people to go to the breakthrough experience, because I take people through what I call the Demartini method, which is a series of very concise and accountable questions that hold you to see the unconscious. See, when you're infatuated with somebody, you're conscious of the upsides and unconscious of the downside. When you're resentful to somebody and despise somebody, you're conscious of the downsides, unconscious of the upsides. If you don't ask the upsides and don't balance the equation, you can't be fully conscious. You're unconscious. And as long as you're unconscious, you're going to be in the world of acceptance and tolerance. The second you're in a state where you actually see both sides, you're in a state of appreciation and love. I don't want you to tolerate me. I don't want you just to accept me. I want you to love me. I've asked people around the world, how many of you want to be loved and appreciated for who you are? Every hand goes up in every country and every language. If I said, how many of you want to be tolerated and just accepted? I don't see the hands go up. So I don't want to use that language. I think it's an incomplete language. It's built out of moral hypocrisies. It's built out of a forgiveness and apology mentality, which is a victim mentality and a dissociated mentality and a false attribution and a false causality mentality, which the Buddhist calls the karmic wheel. I'm interested in you getting to a point where you can appreciate and love yourself and the people around you, particularly the inner circle that you care about and interact with most frequently. And I can show you how to do that in the breakthrough experience. I can show you how to do the Demartini method. I can show you how to understand your values and how to link behaviors to your highest values so you can see people on the way, not in the way. So you're not burdened by them, you're fueled by them. I can show you how to do that for yourself. I teach you how to do it on the people around you, and I teach you how to do it on yourself. So you can look in the mirror and have tears of gratitude. I've had people in the breakthrough experience go to the bathroom after they finished the exercise, had tears of gratitude for themselves, go in the bathroom, look in the mirror and see a different individual. Come back out with more tears after they just cleaned up their makeup for the females, and come back and I said, I just looked in the mirror and I saw a different person. I saw a person, an individual that was thinner, not larger. I saw somebody that I could appreciate with real heart. So if you're interested in appreciating the people around you and all the parts of you and not have to get rid of half of yourself and think you're needing to improve yourself and fix yourself, I'm not interested in you fixing yourself or improving yourself. I'm interested in you appreciating and loving yourself. And if that's of interest to you, come and join me at the Breakthrough Experience where I can take you through the method. The method is something, I give you the principles and all the theory in the morning of this program on the first day. And then that afternoon, we go to work. And I make sure you learn how to do this. So that means nobody on the outside of the world has to distract you anymore. See, anytime you're infatuated or resentful, they're going to occupy space and time in your mind. They're going to distract you with impulses and instincts. They're going to get you into your amygdala. You're going to end up having judgments. You're going to store those in your subconscious mind. Those are going to run you because anybody that reminds you of those people, you're going to have the same infatuation reactions or repulsion reactions. And you're going to be run from the external world instead of run from the internal design. You're either living by duty and reactions from the external world, or you're living by design and inspiration from within. I want you to live from within, inspiration within. I'm not interested in tolerating. I'm not interested in accepting only. I want to go further. I want to go all the way to a deep appreciation and love for the people in your life and yourself. I want you to look in the mirror and say, thank you, I love you. If you can't say that and you can't say thank you, I love you to the people around you, then there's a block. And that block is stored because of these splits in the mind, the judgments in the mind because of the moral hypocrisies. So the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. At the Breakthrough Experience, I'm going to teach you a whole new set of questions. It's going to change your life. I just finished the Breakthrough Experience this last week. I asked people at the end of the program, like I do every time I do it, I said, how many of you learned something this weekend you could have gone your entire life and never have learned if you hadn't been here? Every hand goes up every week. And how many of you right now have a completely new story about the individual that you just did the method on? Every hand goes up. And how many right now has love and appreciation for them instead of resentment or tolerance or avoidance and all the drama? Their hand goes up. I said, how many of you probably have other people in your life you could start to apply this method on? All the hands go up. And how many of you want to have now appreciation like that for yourself? The hands go up. I said, well, let's keep doing it on ourselves and clear out all the baggage you've gone so you can actually live beyond acceptance and tolerance of yourself and get to a point where you deeply love and appreciate yourself. That's available to you. So come to the Breakthrough Experience so I can actually take you through it and show you how to do it. I can show you how, and by the way, the reasons why we're judging ourselves all the time is because we put people on pedestals and minimize ourselves, and that's inauthentic. And then we put people in pits and we exaggerate ourselves, and that's inauthentic. How are we going to love ourselves if we're not even being ourselves? We only are, when we're really our true self, we're not exaggerating or minimizing ourselves. We're not proud or shamed. We're actually grateful, and we're inspired by who we are. I want to show you how to do that. And I can show you how to do it. You'll experience it. You'll know exactly what to do. You'll know how to reproduce it. So anything that throws you off and perturbs you from the external world, you'll know how to take it. You have control of your perception, decisions, and actions. And the actions you take at the Breakthrough Experience shows you how to transform your perceptions, your decisions, your actions into something you can be grateful for. So I just want to take some time to spend today on that topic because I really believe that that is something we all can help, be benefited by. I watch a lot of people when they first come to the Breakthrough Experience, they're judging others. And remember, whatever you judge in others is pointing back at you. You're judging in yourself. That's been known for centuries. So if you go in there and you're judging them and resenting them, that means you're feeling ashamed inside. And the reason I know that is in the Breakthrough Experience, I've cleared the shame on the self and then the resentment on others disappear. Just like if I go and clear the resentment on others, sometimes the shame on ourselves disappear because we find the blessings and the benefits of what they offered us. We see the benefits in what we've offered. So they work in reflective awareness. I want to teach you in the Breakthrough Experience how to have not deflective awareness where you're too proud or too humble to admit what you see in others, but reflective awareness where the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same, where you realize that everything is in a state of equanimity and equity, and you get to see the order behind the chaos. Most people live in the world of the drama and the chaos, and they're run by their amygdala, and they're seeking and avoiding, and they're run externally. I want you to master your life and take command of your life and live inspired from within. I said on the movie The Secret many years ago, when the voice and the vision on the inside is louder than all opinions on the outside, you begin to master your life. At the Breakthrough Experience, I'm going to show you how to do that and live that way. So come and join me at the Breakthrough Experience. Spend 6 hours with me, going deeper and discovering the magnificence of your life. And I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to improve you. There's nothing that needs fixing, and it doesn't need improving. It's just awareness. The only reason you ever judge yourself and think you've made mistakes is when you compare your actions to somebody else's values. The only time you think they've made mistakes is when you compare their actions to your values. I'm going to show you how to communicate and reflect and see how their values and your values help each other so they don't have to judge the individual, which causes the thing you need to accept and tolerate. So come and join me at the Breakthrough Experience. I can't wait to share this information with you. It's helped thousands and thousands of people around the world, in many countries around the world, and I just can't wait to bring it to you. I know you'll say thank you as you learn this method and you learn the tools that's at the Breakthrough Experience. It's time to love yourself. It's not time to tolerate and just accept. Why accept a mediocrity and when you can actually do something profound? So come and join me at the Breakthrough Experience. It'll be a mind-blowing, absolutely enlightening weekend.